So we this was came into being sort of around June last year, when most of the world was in the heat of the pandemic and nobody was allowed to go outside. We formed the core production team over sort of June and July, and then started reaching out for the wider production team, most of whom will be answering questions tonight. After that, we held auditions, and then got stuck into the recording of the whole show and the putting of it together. The people who you can who are here to answer your question tonight are me and Adam West, who is on the production team. A little bit about me. I am clearly from Britain, I currently work in the civil service, but I have always had always enjoyed being in productions and amateur productions, hence why I'm doing this. Adam, would you like to unmute yourself and say a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Adam. I was the assistant producer on this project. I mainly took care of the social media and some of the other aspects. I myself am a singer, although I didn't sing for this project, and I work in music publishing.
Thanks, Adam. Also on the school, we have our directing team, Alex and Sarah. Alex and Sarah, would you like to unmute yourself and give us a little talk about yourself?
Hello, yeah, I'm Alex Kostoukas, and it's been my great pleasure to be directing Die Fledermaus Zuhaus. I'm based in America now. I was able to meet quite a few of the core crew when I was getting a degree in London. And I'm really hoping to be back there at some point, but with the pandemic changing the face of the known world, who knows what's going to happen. So it's been wonderful working with a truly international cohort of people on this production, including our wonderful assistant director, Sarah. So please take it away, Sarah.
Sarah, would you like to say anything about yourself? Oh, maybe we'll come back to Sarah. The wonders of virtual productions. But I'll move on to our, this is a whole string of titles next. We have people who created this thing, had the idea for it, also our musical directors, and performed as Dr. Falke and Adele in the production. Christina and Jonathan, tell us about yourselves.
Hello, please.
Hi, I'm Christina, and this is Jonathan, and we kind of came up with the idea for this show one sort of April morning when we were doing a bike ride along the Danube, and we're both singers, so we decided that we wanted to put together a show.
And we're based in Vienna, from the States originally, but Die Fledermaus is a cultural phenomenon here, and it's really become a show close to our hearts, so we really felt like it would be a good thing to do during the lockdown to try to share it with everybody.
Great, thanks guys. At the height of irony, our technical director is having technical difficulties, and so cannot join us at the moment. But we will make sure to introduce him when he does arrive. Moving on to our graphic designer, Leonie, would you like to say a few words about yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Leonie, and I'm actually in Austria at the moment, and I'm from Austria as well, so it was a great pleasure to be able to do drawings and designs for this production. I usually study war studies in London, so this was a very nice change from my usual work. And yeah, it was such a pleasure to watch it all come together, and my Austrian heart was glowing when I watched it, so yeah.
Great, thanks, Leonie. Right, I think I've introduced everybody. Oh no, wait, and also we have Sarah Ann, who will be our cast representative. We have a huge international cast, but Sarah has kindly agreed to answer your question. Sarah, would you like to say something about yourself?
Yes, hello, I'm Sarah Ann Sutter. I'm in the United States, in Chicago, but I lived in Germany for 4 years. So the German language is very close to my heart, and Die Fledermaus was one of the very first operas that I ever saw on VHS tape when I was a young girl, or a child really. So to be able to sing in this for the second time has just been delightful. Thank you to everyone who put this together, for everyone.
Great, thanks, Sarah. Right. Oh no, wait, here we got, we've got Louis has just come on. Louis, our technical director. Sorry to really leap on you as you arrive on the call. But would you like to tell us a bit about yourself and how you got involved in this production?
Yeah, so I'm Louis. I did all of the nice animations. I am primarily a singer, but recently got into more techie video editing stuff, and got in touch with Hannah through a friend. And
we seem to slightly be juttering here with Louis, but there will be plenty of time to ask him more questions in a bit. So let's head off with the first couple of questions. We got people to ask questions. Adam, could you message Louis and ask him to mute himself? Thank you. Just to avoid the slight jutters as we move on. Right.
If you're wondering why we didn't do the whole show live, this is
yes, exactly. This is why. Thanks, Louis. We'll direct some questions to you throughout. I'm sure there'll be many of them. Okay, so as we ask people to ask questions via the Google form, don't worry if you haven't and you have a burning question you'd like to ask. When I get through the questions that have been asked, just put your hand up and I will ask you to ask a question, if that all makes sense. So the first question we have is directed to both the directing team and the producing team. But I'll start with the directing team, otherwise I'm just answering myself. So Alex and Sarah, what techniques and methods did you use to make the show happen? And what would you use, how would you use them again in real life when we are allowed to direct and produce shows again?
That is an excellent question. It's been extraordinary finding out just how much this particular format affords us that one wouldn't really even think about in the heat of a rehearsal room. In the rehearsal room, you have such advantages of having everybody together. You can play with different shapes and blocking. You can make miracles happen on the stage. But what you don't think about so much is playing with the audience's expectations about space, which is what this format turns out to be all about. When you have people in different frames, then the whole charm of it becomes not only what can we do inside the frames, but also what happens when the frames intermingle and meet. And in having chats with Sarah and also with Louis, our technical director, it's been fascinating seeing just what sort of pranks we can make those frames pull among themselves and how we can surround them with imagery and make the frames part of the imagery, as in that moment when the frames became bubbles in the champagne. It's been fascinating seeing that happen. And as for how we would translate that into a live production when all of this chaos is over, that's a mystery that I think we still need to solve. I think perhaps just thinking about how space can be our friend and our unreliable friend is going to be exciting. Sarah, I'm sorry to be overwhelming this. Please go ahead and add stuff.
It's been really wonderful working on this project. And as you said, there were so many challenges to think about that that don't even come to mind if you're not into this situation of having to direct a virtual opera. And it's been really amazing looking at all the details and sorry, my internet connection is unstable.
Sorry, we can hear what you're saying.
And
yeah,
it's been interesting, this whole journey.
Wait, excellent. Thanks, Sarah. To say from a producer side, well, I mean, a lot about producing is often about the sort of the budget and making it all work in the theatre, which obviously we didn't really have, as we did this whole production on a £0 budget. Hopefully you couldn't tell. So that was kind of scrapped and the wayside. And then and the other huge side that I often use to producing is publicity. And obviously all of this had to be online, whereas normally we'd sort of do printers and flyers and all that kind of stuff, posters and flyers. So everything had to be online. With the sort of organising of the cast and crew, in a way, it was kind of easier, as people are much more responsive over Messenger than perhaps they would be in real life, because I can tell when they've seen and that they know they're listening. But yeah, it's just sort of that kind of making sure that that kind of thing, those kind of skills still translate online, because obviously when you're doing a big show, you're often communicating with people who aren't in the same room with you anyway. You're only together for the rehearsals that you're there. It was very different, the fact that everybody was around the world, because I had to do a whole spreadsheet of different time zones in order to even do the rehearsal schedule, which was fun, especially as I was very much struggling to understand time zones and often had to get them to explain to me by various other members of the production team. But yeah, it just meant that you had to be much more like on it and organized than perhaps you would be in a normal show, because everything had to be planned immediately before. Adam, did you have anything else you'd like to add?
Just time zones. Bane of everyone's life. Why does everyone have so many in there, all in such complicated formats? But yes, we managed to negotiate it.
Yes, great. So moving on to the next question. This is a question for the directing team, although probably we can talk about with producing as well. So Alex and Sarah, how did you get people to coordinate for group numbers? Obviously with there were often trios, probably is the biggest that we had, other than the big chorus numbers. But yeah, how did you organize that?
Oh goodness, this was one of the big challenges, and this platform that we're on right now, Zoom, turned out to be fairly helpful for that, because we could act together in rehearsal at least. And then of course all of the singers have to trot off and record their things individually and just pretend that other people are there. But at least in the moments that we had together, we were able to say, oh, wouldn't it be fun if you go over here? And then we can have you in the foreground, etc. Things like that. What about you, Sarah? What sort of things?
Yeah, and also we even had to play with angles, like with camera angles. Like if we want the actor to seem like he looks straight at the camera, he sort of had to look a bit, down, so that, it looked coordinated. But it was really tricky. We had to actually say, people, you're gonna face right, you're gonna face left, and then Luis had to just put everything together. So yeah.
Yes, obviously a lot of the coordinating would go down to Louis. If Louis, would you like to say anything on this? How you got everybody to get together?
Yeah, well, it was a nice sort of mix of having it already done and then having to add stuff on top, and then also having to sort of take some of the directing that had been done and recorded, but also pretend that didn't happen, because it doesn't work on the video.
Great. Yeah.
But yeah, it's quite a difficult process coming from the director. I'm not sure.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Louis. So moving on to our next question. This is for our musical directors.
Okay, yeah.
So, Louis, are you back? Oh, there we are. Okay. So moving on to Christina and Jonathan. So how did you cut the opera down to the length that you wanted it to be? Because obviously it's a much shortened opera than perhaps we would see if we went to the actual opera.
Well, the first thing we wanted to do was cut out as many group numbers as we could but still maintain sort of the integrity of the opera and the spirit of the opera. So we wanted to make sure we kind of included all the choral big hitters, so to speak. But really, we needed to cut it down so that it could be kind of as few people as possible, but still make sense thematically.
Yeah, we quickly realized that doing the full opera, especially all of the group numbers, would mean that we would release something in 2024. And considering we wanted something a little sooner than that, we had to figure out how to cut it, maintain the emotional core, especially since these are such memorable musical numbers, keep the core of the musical numbers that you would recognize without having the full length and especially all the group numbers that this show originally has.
I mean, that's the thing that we should mention is this project took so much longer than any of us really thought it would. I mean, I think we discussed many sort of release dates, but eventually ended up in February. But
yeah,
the idea that it could take 10 months is quite amazing. And all of that is obviously down to Louis for all his wonderful craftsmanship for putting it all together, even in this time. So this is a question for the directing team. And it's, what was the nicest surprise with putting this show together? Alex or Sarah, would you like to take that? You're muted, Alex. Oh no, there we go.
Would you like to go first, Sarah?
I'm still thinking.
Okay. I think one of the nicest surprises for me was how much love is written into this show. I do some professional work as a musician, so of course you can't escape knowing about Die Fledermaus and knowing what a big deal it is in Vienna, what a party atmosphere it's imbued with. But until you really get under the hood, it's a little bit easier to forget how much compassion is written into it, how Dr. Falke is a downtrodden lawyer, and Adela is a downtrodden maid, and Rosalinda is bored of being in her gilded cage. And during the course of the show, they all help each other rise up. And there's something so sweet about that. So it turns out not to be just this incredible party atmosphere of a show. It turns out to have really quite a sweet heart underneath the champagne. And that's been a lovely motivating force throughout the whole rehearsal period, is finding out ways of helping the cast embrace that.
Great, thanks, Alex. That's a great answer. So we now have a question for the cast. So Sarah, if you would like to take that, and also if any other people who are in the cast and on the call, as I can see that many people are, would like to join in, please raise your hand, and we will make sure that you have a chance to answer. So Sarah, to begin with, what was it like acting with people who weren't actually there?
It really was a challenge because it's normally part of the pleasure and the craft of it to be able to play off of people and to build on what your castmates are doing to help inform what you're going to do, and to do that in a vacuum. I can only imagine, if I were in one of those superhero movies with a green screen, that it must be similar because there's just no one to play across. We did have rehearsals with Alex and Sarah and the castmates in our scene that helped, but then we have to go off and do it ourselves in a vacuum. But really knowing the show as well as I do, having done it before, having loved it for so long, and really also speaking German and really understanding that's what helped me with it. Had it been a different show, I think it would have been even harder. But in this case, I just really knew the material, so then it was easier to imagine what my castmates would probably be doing, and then kind of hope for the best.
I think
Great, thanks, Sarah. Katrina.
An enormous amount of trust, because since we're playing in a vacuum, exactly like you say, You have to give these full out reactions to these drastic party and emotional moments. And you just have to trust that the other cast members and the cutting and the directors will take your reactions off camera or your smirks at somebody who is next to you and make that make sense. So it was really an interesting experience taking what is usually the dynamic on stage between actors and singers and turning it into trust for your producer and your director and what's going to happen on camera. And that was exciting.
Great, thanks. Any more of the cast want to chime in? Nope. Okay. So moving back to Louis, if your tech can manage it, although I've lost you on asking. There you are. What did you find most challenging about this whole experience, as you were very much at the helm from December the 1st onwards?
Is this to me? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, no, it's to you.
I cut out. I just turned my video off just because my internet's struggling a little bit. But yeah, the most difficult part was definitely not starting on the scenes with the chorus earlier. I underestimated the amount of work that would have to go into those scenes, especially just because the state that the technology is at the moment, it's not really geared for this sort of thing. So there's a lot of botched job, little. I made up a lot of things as I went along, and I wish I was a little bit more experimental towards the start, so I didn't have to deal with it all towards the end.
Well, I mean, for us, it was very much like towards the last couple of months, you just kept getting better and better and better. And we were like, oh my God, what are you producing now? So that it's definitely, we thank you for your becoming more and more experimental. What other questions do we have? So another one for the producing team is, how did we arrange a calendar with so many people? So I've sort of mentioned this before, but I had a spreadsheet that was originally designed by Jonathan of all the dates, starting from we started in July to September to begin with, and I had written in every single date all the people that couldn't come, and all the people and whatever rehearsals that we were going to have. And then we had 3 stages where we would have the accompanist, because we had 5 accompanists who were recording for us, and they did an incredible job. When they needed to submit their recording, because obviously you couldn't really start practicing as a cast member without having the piano recording that you were going to sing with. So when they would submit that, and then after we had that recording, we would have a rehearsal. And then after that, we would have a recording deadline in which the cast could get that recording to us. So it was, and that sort of played out over a 3 to 4 week period, which shows you quite how long everything took in order to give people enough time to digest the direction. So yeah, Alex or Sarah, do you have anything to add on how we did the calendar of people?
It really was delayed action, as you say. Normally you give some direction, you can see it unroll right in front of you, and you know if it's going to work or not, or at least you can make an educated guess. Here, a week might go by before people can get everything together to record. And then it's not until Louis gets the video that he can find out, as he mentioned, if it will actually work on screen with the rest of what he's putting together. So it was very experimental in that way, and the whole rhythm of putting it together was correspondingly different. Not bad, just different. Yeah. Great.
We've just had a question from Felix. Sorry that the Google Doc isn't working for you. Were there, and this is for the cast, he says, were there ever any moments in which you thought it was too difficult and you couldn't go any further? Sarah, did you have anything like that?
Do you mean Sarah Ann? Sarah?
Sarah Ann, yeah,
Yes.
sorry.
No, I knew we would get it eventually, for sure. But there were a couple moments just musically where I thought, okay, this is going to be really, really interesting to try to get it to coordinate, especially for sections of the music that are traditionally cut. There's one little piece that for some reason is always seems to be cut at the trio at the end of Act 1. And I listened to a number of professional recordings, and I was, where did this come from? There's these 3 extra bars that aren't usually there. And it was also just rhythmically very tricky. So that was the one where I was like, oh, I'm not going to get this one or not. But I just worked through it. And all my best compliments to our wonderful accompanists. And something also that Jonathan added in later was a conducting video along with that also was extremely helpful for some of the cutoffs for things that ordinarily would be done just by watching.
Great, yeah. Any other members of the cast want to come in on that? Anything you found very difficult to do? Nope. Cool.
If I could.
Oh, sorry, Jonathan, you go. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of this was definitely a learning experience for all the cast and the people producing as well. And we kept finding roadblocks, like how on earth could we possibly coordinate a group of 15 people to sing together without a conductor? It's like, well, I guess we can make one digitally. Or how do we have a rehearsal if we can't possibly sing together in time on Zoom? And Alex had the great idea of everyone turn on mute and we'll play the song over Zoom and you'll act to what you hear and not to each other, so that Alex could still see how you were acting for a song. And a lot of these are sort of these things we discovered as we were going through the production that were like, oh, how would we overcome this impossible thing? I guess we invent something new to do it. And it just kept happening. And that's sort of how this whole thing was done.
Yes, very much so. Everything was sort of a lot of either meetings, we have a quite a frequent meeting towards the end at 6 p.m. on a Monday, whatever time that was, or 6 p.m. my time, whatever time that was throughout the world, everybody else, and we would just sort of talk through problems that we were experiencing. Katrina, you had your hand up.
One of the things that was particularly fun in Orlovsky's aria, there's quite a few moments where he's supposed to be drunk and dramatic, and it's just the conductor is supposed to watch the singer moment for and then I go again. But when you're working with the system, you have to base your emotional process as the singer off of what's already been recorded by the pianist. So it was certainly a discipline practice for me as a performer to go, okay, the conductor's not going to do what I say. I have to do what's there and make that make sense for my character. I can't remember the last time I worked in such a disciplined way. It was very fun.
Great. Yeah. So Lorenzo has asked us a question to the initiators, which I think counts as Christina and Jonathan, and then also possibly Alex and I. So how did you find this amazing cast? Christina, would you like to say something?
Yeah, sure. So when all of this started, I kind of ended up just writing this big casting call. Like, if we were going to do this, this is what I wanted to say. And I've been very fortunate in that Jonathan and I have been able to live and travel in various places in the world. So we both lived in California, I lived in London, and now we're living in Vienna, in Detroit. And so we have friends from all over the world. So we just sort of put it out there. And, you know, a lot of the members of our cast are from the California Bay Area. So that was really fun to see. They're from kind of all over our different parts of our lives. Family, high school friends, college friends, grad school friends. And then social media was what got us kind of to the next step. We just posted this casting call on Facebook and just online to see if anybody would even be interested in taking on a project as crazy and involved as this. And luckily we got the most amazing production staff we could possibly ask for. So it was, I mean, met with a huge response, and it's really the only reason that it actually happened.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then for the non-social media, I think I emailed about sort of 40 different music schools and foreign language schools, asking them if they would share this this casting call around, and through that we certainly got a lot of our production team. I'm not sure how many of the cast we got. It's very hard to know how quite a few of our cast came, because they would just send us an email being like, "I'm interested. Here's my audition," and we would watch it. Did anybody in the cast want to say how they heard about it if they didn't quite hear about it through either of the methods we mentioned? Sarah? Anne?
I'm trying to remember, but I think it was through one of the Gilbert and Sullivan Facebook groups, of which I'm a member of.
Also post in this.
Many, all of them, and I think that's where I saw it.
Excellent. Rui, did you have anything to say? Yes.
Me?
Yes.
Sorry. Okay. At first, I'm not speaking really very frequently, fluently English because I speak Italian. Io parlo italiano, sì. But I try to say every day, like other singers, I search in internet auditions. So one day it's came out the audition of Die Fledermaus Zuhaus, and I have sung this role in 2018 in German. So I very love this funny opera. So I want to sing the Etzstein. Again, thanks for the production team. Okay, give me the opportunity to sing this role again, and with this fabulous production, I really love it. It's really funny. This is my first time experience in virtual production. So thanks everyone, and I enjoy it. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I mean, I speak for everyone. It's all our first time. But yes, I mean that just shows how far we managed to reach around the world. But yeah. So another question from Lorenzo. Thanks. How many hours do we estimate went into the production in total? I think this is a question for Louis because he definitely put in more hours than any of us combined. Do you have anything to say, Louis?
Yeah, I couldn't give even an approximate figure. I think for quite a while it was at least, like 4 to 5 hours a day, and then this last week, perhaps the last 2 weeks, have been sort of 9 to 5 just editing this.
Yes. Well, there were definite times when you would message us saying you're so tired, and we would go, please go to sleep, Louis. It's not. Please, your sleep and sanity is still much more important.
Why much work on it, and why I wanted it to make it something cool. Something.
Yes. And as you say, everything you did amazed and surprised everybody on the production team so much more than we could ever imagine when you first sent me that email 10 months ago saying you've done some video editing and might be interested in doing this production. Great. So Rob has asked, it's glad that it's a fundraiser and what's our goal. So we decided to raise money for a musicians charity because we know that there are so many people who are unfortunately affected, musicians, by COVID-19, and the whole reason we're doing this project is because we can't do a production in a theatre. So we decided, after long discussions about trying to find as international or as musician-based a charity that we could, we settled on Sweet Relief. and who are a charity who normally raise money for musicians who are disabled or very ill and therefore cannot work, but have also set up a COVID-19 fund, which is for any musician who is affected by COVID-19. My internet is not allowing me to find the fundraiser at the moment, but if you go to our website, which I'm just going to type in here, there's a tab on there which will take you to the fundraiser. We're currently, last time I checked, about $800, which is incredible, more than we could even have thought of. And we don't have a goal. We want to raise that much money, but if we can get it to $1,000, that would be also incredible. So yeah, please keep donating if that's something you are able to do at this moment. Great. Unfortunately, all the questions are now, everybody's posting so much, I'm losing the questions. But okay, so we had a question from Tina. Would you all do this again? It's a great question. Let's go to someone we haven't heard from, perhaps. Leonie, as our graphic designer. No one has asked any questions of you yet. What do you think? Would you do it again?
Yes, definitely. It was so much fun it started off with kind of designing the logo and then getting more and more involved in the creative side of it, and kind of then becoming the stage design of these frames, which was so much fun. And at school I had to do like a stage design once and paint this like 4 by 10 meter thing, and this time it was super easy because I had my iPad. I was like, oh, it's gonna be this, and you make a few brush strokes and you can create kind of a new atmosphere for each scene. So that was great. And working with Louis was amazing, where we would just kind of bounce off ideas and be like, can you draw this? And I was like, yes, I'll try it, and send it over. So that was super fun because we had that flexibility and to kind of reuse elements as well, which is something that is, I guess you can do with a real stage, but yeah.
That's great, thanks. Adam, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Certainly, I think there's something wonderful and about such an international cast coming together without ever meeting, which isn't normally possible, and not normally called upon. Actually, we take it for granted traveling around the world, whereas actually there's something rather wonderful where we've not met each other, but we've produced this wonderful piece of work. And I think that's something we may look back at this in 10 years' time and think, wow, we did this in such difficult times, and really I think and it's something that's very unique. Our whole concept probably wouldn't have come about 3 years ago, and people would have thought we were mad. But actually, faced with adversity, we've really come together, and people that really don't sort of necessarily have never worked together before, we've sort of managed to produce something which has been really rather wonderful. So yes, I think definitely do it again, and definitely it's reacting to the times in such a wonderful way.
We have discussed as a production team the possibility of doing it again, although at the moment we are perhaps slightly reeling from the amount of stuff we've put into it, so it might take us a while to agree to set it all up again, but it's definitely the idea that's on the cards. Speaking as a producer, it's definitely one of the most dedicated production teams I've ever had. Everybody was so willing to do what was needed immediately, so much so that I would be working throughout the day and not check my messages, and there would be sort of 30 messages, and all the problems that had happened had been solved before I'd even had a chance to check my phone, which is definitely not the impression I often got in amateur theatre, where everybody would sort of stare at each other slightly nonplussed if a problem came up. Great. Vicky has asked another question for the cast and has said, did the cast require any special recording equipment to produce their videos? Sarah Ann, did you have anything to say for that? And then any other cast members as well, please come in.
Not really. I did have an external mic, and I'm not using it today, but it's something like this. that it's pretty simple. It's just a USB mic, and I've done a lot of digital stuff over the last year. So it's something that I use quite often for all the things I'm doing. So I guess compared to, say, 2 years ago, yes, it's special equipment, but in the time of COVID, I don't consider it special equipment anymore. And the video is just an ordinary webcam. And honestly, I recorded my videos in Zoom, actually. I didn't even use another platform. If I were to do this again myself, I actually would do things a little differently, because through this and other things I've done, I've learned some other tricks that I didn't know even when we were filming this. But yeah, it was pretty basic, actually.
Now, I made it much more complicated for myself than I needed to, as Christina and Jonathan so generously helped me with my frustration. Yes, my friends, because me and my husband are perfectionists, and Christina was like, just do it the easy way, but no. So we had the external mic, the external camera, the secondary external recorder, not the camera one, plus the stage light. We brought in every plant from every room in our house to be my backdrop. We brought in 50 bottles of alcohol to be my other backdrop, which we then had to set up exactly the same over 3 separate days. We made it way too complicated but it certainly could have been easier if we hadn't been so crazy.
Well, that is the enthusiasm that we need. And it's also the enthusiasm that made this project. Wow. Was how much people were willing to put into it. Any other questions? Jim has asked whether we would consider doing a virtual production even when we are able to do normal productions again. And I think I can speak for a lot of people where I say that certainly 2020 and almost a third of 2021 has made it that we would have to do this. And I think it's also made us learn a lot of new skills that we didn't have a year and a half ago. I am a self-possessed technophobe. So if anybody had ever suggested 2 years ago that I would be organising a virtual opera is incredible. And the ability to have people from all over the world be involved in this production, it is just incredible. When you do amateur theatre normally, you're often doing it with your same group of friends again and again and again, which is in itself a lot of fun. But what this allowed was for us to reach out to everybody. And because of that, we managed to get the best people involved, which I think is just incredible. I don't know, and so I would definitely be interested in doing something like that again. Alex or Sarah or anyone, do you have any ideas about directing, perhaps? As you say, it's certainly harder than face to face.
Sarah, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Because I had to produce a virtual musical theater show for my university degree, which was 2 months before we started directing the opera. I sort of had an idea what I was going into, but most of my skills I learned from this opera. And I'm really grateful for that, because in the future, I think virtual theater will be really popular. So I really treasure these new skills I've learned with Die Fledermaus. It was really helpful for me as a performing arts producer and director, definitely.
Definitely, yes. Alex, anything else to add?
Everything Sarah said goes for me too. This is a new platform and a new format, and it's been so exciting trying it out. Yeah.
Great. I can't see any other questions. So did anybody else have anything they would like to add? Or I have one final fun question that someone did post on the Google form. Did anybody have anything else they'd like to ask before then? No, great. Well, so the final question that I had was, somebody asked the cast, would they take their character out for a pint at the end of the show? So, Sarah Ann, would you like to kick us off with that?
Oh, absolutely, I would. Frank seems like a really jolly person, and I would absolutely go out with her, or really anyone in the cast. Like Alex said earlier, the characters are all really endearing and lovely people, I think, at heart, and which is why the show has endured for the last, 150 years now. So yes, I would go out with Frank. I would go out with everyone in the cast for a pint. Cast and their characters.
Katrina or anyone else, do you have anything to say?
You're a brave woman, Sarah Ann. One of the things that I really like about the characters that I get to play as a mezzo-soprano is they tend to be very brash, rather violent, and a little bit over the top. These are the kinds of people I love to play because they're a lot like me as a person. But they are not the kind of people that me as a person would like to go out with, because we would get in a fight. Yeah, Christina and Jonathan, you know. So me, Morlovsky, but I don't think we would be friends.
Christina or Jonathan, do you have anything to add?
I was going to say that I would go out with Falca for a pint, but I'd be very careful not to mistreat him, because if you do, he will get you back.
Yeah, I definitely think Adela and I we would probably get along pretty well. And I would probably not go out for a drink with Prince Orlovsky because, frankly, he's terrifying.
Yeah, fair.
And all of we had a couple of audience members we were chatting with, and they also said Prince Orlovsky was terrifying.
Thank you! I worked so hard to make him creepy!
Well, speaking from a production side, it is very weird having not worked with any people, not having worked or met many people before. So I would certainly like to meet most of my production team for a pint at some point. And obviously, Louis deserves most of a bar from all of us. So it's definitely an idea for us to have some kind of get together towards the end, and perhaps any cast members that we manage can come as their characters, and we will see how that plays out.